Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Hello and welcome to a special bonus podcast recorded specifically for Dallas Week. I know a lot of you used to listen to this show. It had a big following and it's been off of the airwaves for a long time. But this week, RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys and Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation teamed up to record a bonus one-off episode of the NFC Mixtape to celebrate Eagles Dallas Week. This is that conversation. So take a listen. Be sure you click the subscribe button and head over to Twitter and make sure you're following both of these guys. Both great follows. Make sure you let them know you enjoyed the episode. You're not here to hear me. You're here to hear them. So let's throw to that interview.
Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is, I think, kind of, maybe, at the very least, like a cameo from a character that was once on the show, on the season, on the series, whatever, that has returned. It is sort of the NFC East Mixtape, BLG. How goes it?
RJ, long time, no podcast. So, you know, it's funny to take people behind the curtain here.
Okay. As
we do. I really don't talk to you a lot anymore. It's not like, hey, I'm sure, like, you know, if anyone's ever wondering about that, like, I wonder if RJ and Brandon talk, like, outside of the show. It's not that we never talk, but we definitely don't talk as much as we did when we actually used to podcast together regularly, which, to be clear, no lack of desire to do that on our end, just so people know. Not really, something we just decided to stop doing ourselves. But we also do appreciate the people who have missed it and voiced that.
Yeah, it's been individually, like relative to the team that I cover, it's been a very weird 2024. Just kind of everything happening with the Cowboys and the podcast and the mixtape, and appreciating the feedback that everybody had to offer, obviously. And while I don't want to in any way, I don't know what the opposite of thank is, besmirch or poo-poo. But I don't want to do that to anyone. But what I will say is, because it is something that we want to do, kind of annoying to still get the, like, where's the mixtape questions? Like, your question's as good as ours. I mean, we definitely want to do this. I don't want to speak for you, Brandon, but we want to do this on a regular basis. And so that remains the goal. That has always been the goal. Mm-hmm. And just for full context, this is, we're going to call it an episode of the mixtape, but it's not, or it is. Again, it's kind of halfway in between. It is up on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, and we're going to see if we can get it on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. And if you can also offer the specifics on the audio side of things, because I know that there is a home for that this week, at least.
Yeah, we have some former BGN podcast contributors over at the Eagles Pin Pool Network. Shane Haff and Johnny Page. Obviously, Johnny Page does a lot of good film breakdowns at Bleeding Green Nation. A lot of people recognize his name, certainly on our end. But yeah, also planning to have the audio posted there, which maybe you're listening to. So you already know that, but in case you were maybe on the YouTube version and wanted to go find that there, just a bonus. We're not, as of right now, it's not a regular full-time thing, again, as we'd like it to be, but there is that for now.
Okay, so we just actually cannot cover everything. Like, it's impossible. So I have a proposed template for this pseudo episode of the mixtape, and also to Brandon's point about how very little we talk. And I think Brandon's awesome. It's just we're busy.
That's right.
But so we haven't discussed this at all. We haven't run anything by each other. We just said, let's record on Wednesday And that's what we're doing. So do you want to hear my proposed template and see if you agree with it or disagree?
I mean, we have to go in divisional order. We have to start with the
No.
Commanders. Right?
Obviously, we have to go
kidding.
into. Well, I'm fine going in divisional order.
No, we can't do that. It's an Eagles-Cowboys week. We have to talk about this
Okay,
game.
well, I actually think it should only be Eagles-Cowboys discussion.
Sure.
So then that amends my proposal.
Well, maybe some closing thoughts.
Sure.
Teams.
So that kind of amends my proposal. My proposal is then the 10 things episode.
Sure.
So 10 things, you get 5, I get 5. You can make all 5 of yours about the Cowboys, and things, they're bullet points, whatever, questions if you want to bring up, to raise, whatever. But we kind of riff through 10 different data points relative to these two teams. You get 5, I get 5. You can go first, or I can go first if you want, because I sprung this on you at the moment. But
you go first.
Okay, so again, it could be about Eagles or Cowboys. Again, so it could be like a vent thing to get your perspective on a Cowboys thing or whatever. My thing is about the Eagles, and I really am so sad that we didn't have the mixtape so that I could come on here and jump on the Howie Roseman just reads Daniel Jeremiah's mock drafts, and that's why everybody thinks he's a good general manager. I would have had so much fun with that. I'm also very sad that Russell Wilson is good again, and I haven't been able to impersonate him a single time. We did talk about that, to be clear, but my Eagles thing is they might make signing veteran free agent running backs a thing again. The Saquon Barkley thing has worked out beautifully, perfectly, wonderfully, especially for the we are people. I know that you are not. And it is highly annoying. And I'm so annoyed at the Cowboys because they have broken me so much that I don't even have the energy to be mad about it. You know what I'm saying? The only energy I have is to analyze it and just assess it and say, oh, this made a lot of sense. It was really smart. Good for the Eagles. Well done.
Saquon's been unreal, obviously. I was not high on the signing. I didn't think he would be terrible. I just didn't think he would be worth it. I thought he'd just be kind of fine.
Because no running back could be. None could be for any team ever. That was the thing.
And I think even the most optimistic people about his signing would have to admit he's been even better than they possibly realistically could have expected. I mean, it was just one play. But that play, basically encapsulates how unreal he's been for the Eagles this season when he has that catch on third down, short of the sticks against the Jags, jukes a defender, spins out of the way of another, and then does the most insane thing I've probably ever seen a player try to do on a football field, where he reverse jumped over someone. Watching that live, I just started laughing. I was I didn't even know what to say. Nick Sirianni didn't know what to say after the game. It's how do you even give commentary or analysis on that play? That's just unreal. And his numbers this season have been unreal. He's NFC Offensive Player of the Week for the 3rd time this year in 8 games. He had that award 3 times, the same amount, with the Giants in 74 games over 6 seasons. He's been unreal. He won't win MVP, but he's in that kind of conversation if you're talking about the top candidates. And I don't know if he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year because Derrick Henry's been so unreal, but he's right there. And if Henry stumbles or gets hurt or whatever, misses some time, Saquon is suddenly the front runner for that award. So Saquon's been unreal, and basically in every way too. As a runner, as a runner, as a big play threat, as a runner when short yardage, getting the tough yards, as a pass catcher, as a pass blocker, literally anything you could want from Saquon Barkley, he's given you. There have been some he had the drop against the Falcons. They lose that game. He's had the fumble in this game, which I don't really agree was a fumble. There's been some weird down moments, but it's very much a net positive.
He had the huge coming out party, obviously, in the opener in Brazil. And I was so excited because this was before I was fully broken. But I was so excited during the Monday night loss to the Falcons, which I also would have had a field day with the Jason Kelsey stuff. It was so over the top. It was so ridiculous. Again, I'm just trying to vomit everything I can, and make up for lost time. But I was so excited that it was going to be the break point and the flash point or whatever. And it wasn't. And he's been insane. I mean, he really has. You mentioned the big plays. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Eagles probably lose to the Saints without Saquon. I mean, that play at the very end, kind of if this team, is a 12-win team or a 13-win team, you can argue that obviously there's a lot of games left to go, but you could argue he has literally pulled games from the jaws of defeat. And obviously the Saints have kind of fallen off since then. I do want to say, while we're on this subject, that I've seen a lot, and if I was a Giants fan, I would probably be stirring the pot on this, but I think it was the right move. It's really unfortunate for the Giants that this is blown up directly in their face, but it made sense. Now, it only actually makes sense if they move forward properly, which they have yet to completely and totally do. But I said many times on the mixtape that it made sense to pay Daniel Jones what they did when they did. So, like, there's so much reverse bagging happening on the Giants. And my only point with that is, like, you don't need to reverse bag. There's enough to bag right now on the Giants. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're making the bagging ineffective by reverse bagging instead of properly presently bagging. So that was my first thing.
It didn't make sense because they made other bad decisions, right? Like, that's really why it didn't make sense to keep him. Like, if they made other good decisions and
okay, let's move on. We got to move on to things.
Then it would have made more sense. Just a quick point on that.
Okay, you're up.
All right. Why don't we talk about the guy that? So before last season, we had a big debate. It was like, no, Nick Sirianni's better than Mike McCarthy. We're both like making the case for the coach of the team we cover, and I think by the end of the year, we're like, this guy sucks. They should fire this guy. Why is he still here? So really a long journey with him. Look, I know how you already feel about, like, the biggest culprit when it comes to the Cowboys, why they're this bad, is what you were saying all offseason. What we were saying all offseason before we stopped podcasting is the front office, Jerry Jones specifically, they didn't do anything basically to help the team out. Now, that being said, Mike McCarthy still has to make chicken salad out of chicken, and he has to make the most of the situation he's given. And that's what good coaches do. That's what Mike Tomlin, typically, right, like, why he gets so much credit. Vic Fangio with the Eagles defense right now, like, you do more with less. And it's obviously impossible, I think, to argue Mike McCarthy has done that here. So, I mean, he seems like a dead man walking very much. So I want you to confirm that. And then also,
okay,
who do you want the Cowboys coach to be next year?
So one of our favorite sayings around here, like, if we had a studio and we had like signs and things like that, like, one of them would be like a funny font that would say multiple things can be true.
More than one thing can be true.
The verbiage was always multiple things.
No, it's I have the shirt from Holden got me two shirts.
Holden made it wrong.
More than one thing could be true. No,
also, I want to use Holden as an example. I love, really, all of you Eagles fans, but for those of you who think that, like, trolling me or other Cowboys fans about the team is going to get what you want, I really actually regret to inform you, like, it won't. But like we hate this team more than you do. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that we can one day reach a point where we hate each other, like, completely, but that's just not where we're at right now, like you and I. But that being said, a cousin on the more than one thing can be true thing is that things could have been true that are now no longer true. And I do believe that Mike McCarthy made chicken salad in 2020 as an example. And if you recall, I gave him a lot of props then, because at the time we had never seen in the 21st century, really, with franchise quarterbacks, a Cowboys head coach, granted the one was Jason Garrett, make chicken salad when the quarterback was lost due to injury. I mean, the Cowboys somewhat rallied in 2020, and obviously the Commanders or the football team won that division with a below 500 record at the time. And the Cowboys rallied to be in the mix with Andy Dalton under center, which was, again, a huge growth from the staff that preceded him. So we've seen regression there. And I maintain everything that I said about McCarthy and defended him for, because he has to date done things, granted, well in the past now, that had not happened throughout this entire drought, which is embarrassingly long. That doesn't mean he's amazing, but it is context that is necessary. Now, I agree with you, obviously, and myself, that the Cowboys set him up rather poorly this offseason. And not only set him up poorly from a, variable standpoint, but stirred the pot. Like made everything chaotic and toxic and dramatic and challenged him, forced him to live and operate through that. I've asked this all the time, obviously. What I would have done at the time, you either had to extend him or fire him, obviously, after they lost to the Packers. And people say now, like, extend him? What, are you stupid? Like, again, my argument was, I even told you that they had to fire him. But you had to do one or the other to avoid this. And if you had extended him, then guess what? If you were still right here, right now in the exact same situation, you could fire him. It's just money. Like, and it's just like, now you can actually throw the, like, richest franchise in the world thing out, because then it would literally be, oh, all you have to do is set money on fire and you have all of it. So who cares at that point in time? But they set him up poorly. They brought back Mike Zimmer and acted like that was a big old deal, and people actually fell for that carrot, and I can't believe it. They brought back. Oh,
you did too. You wanted Mike. You thought Mike Zimmer would be an upgrade over Dan Quinn.
I wanted Mike, and I was out on Dan Quinn. I wanted Mike Zimmer over Ron Rivera and Rex Ryan, who were the only serious options. But you can check any tape you want.
Ron Rivera. I told you all along.
No.
He's better than Mike McCarthy.
We don't have the time. We don't have the time to explore all of the tangents. Okay, so they brought back Zeke, and I was going to give you credit. You threw that out as a joke last year, and they actually did it. I mean, like,
I was very happy when they did that.
I mean, so this whole thing has been dead on arrival. And yeah, I can't imagine why he would be back at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think like, oh, you got to fire him after the Falcons loss, right? No, I mean, like, and not that I wouldn't, but they're not going to pay him not to coach.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? Like, you think they're going to do some actual work? You know what I mean? Like, they're just here to ride this thing out. And yeah, they'll interview whoever. In an ideal world, I want Ben Johnson. I don't think that happens because Ben Johnson is probably going to want to call plays and want to run a serious NFL operation. Look at how things are in Detroit. So I don't think Bill Belichick will sign up for this either. I mean, the name I've thrown out, and this is just a prediction, and it's a kind of bold, funny one more than anything. I bet you Jason Garrett gets an interview. That's really? Like what I tell me you can't see it. Like, tell me you can't.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
I think he'll get an interview.
You know who might?
A lot of people.
Kellen Moore.
A lot of people have thrown out Kellen Moore, obviously. That would be like Baby Garrett. And a lot of people, this is really far-fetched, but have thrown out Jason Witten. Like he's the next Jason Garrett.
Please do that.
For any Eagles fans unaware, he's coaching high school football. Not that qualifies him, but I mean, just again, if you're curious for what he's doing,
he's going to coach a game without a headset, just like he ran that one time without the helmet on the field.
That was against the Eagles, and it was awesome. The Cowboys won that game. But
wow, how amazing!
Yeah, man,
yeah,
like
really made a big difference.
It's really, really, really bad. And this does not excuse him or exonerate him because he is making it worse, which is, should be charged against him. But right. I mean, who could thrive in this? And that's not to say like keep Mike McCarthy, but I feel for him. I have empathy for him on a human level.
You're up next.
Okay. I feel like I should go Cowboys now and you should go Eagles, right? Like we should kind of balance it out. I actually want your opinion on what the most like Cowboys thing that they've done is since we stopped podcasting. So like that could be bringing Zeke back, like in Cowboys, like in the funny meme way that you define them, but in a realistic meme way, like because a lot of people be like, oh, typical Cowboys when it's disconnected from reality. So like something that is actually tethered to reality that they actually did or have done or continue to do, that you look at and you're like, only these losers, man.
I think it has to be like the stories about, the tours and how football isn't like the top priority, which has been, a through line through previous conversations, not a new kind of thing. But I think that really kind of underscores what went wrong in the offseason in terms of the approach of how, there was that big Twitter thread. I always forget who did that, of like how the Cowboys are just like another business that the Jones have and not that priority, which is very different from there's a lot of sports owners who are also probably similar thinking. That's not totally just the Cowboys, but there are a lot of also owners who are like, they have the one team and they actually truly, really care about that. And it's not just talk. They put their actions, like the Eagles, they're one of the highest spending teams, not even just, cap space, but like, total cash spending in the NFL, and are willing to, like eat big salaries that they, like Carson Wentz, and like when they make a mistake, they're not afraid to just
or the whole Chip
on.
Kelly era. Like let's trade Sam Bradford, let's trade DeMarco Murray, let's trade Byron.
They're willing to try things. They're not going to be beholden to an artificial salary cap like the Cowboys are. So
and it's like what you've said before. I mean, I don't mean to just continue giving you credit, but like at the time of the Chip Kelly thing, at least for the Eagles, it's like, what's going to happen? Oh no, like we're not going to win the Super Bowl again. Like, oh man,
like people use the term "set the franchise back," and I was like, to what? How are they going to be set back?
And that's kind of where I'm at. And that's why I wanted to ask the question. Like, I mean, for anyone who's like 40 or younger, like you have all of the cons of being a Dallas Cowboys fan and none of the pros. You know what I'm saying? Like you only get the, like when they lose, like the memes and the jokes and the insults that your friends or coworkers or whoever like throw at you, but you don't have any of the like good times, right? Like, I mean, if you're an Eagles fan, like when things are really embarrassing, like they were last year, at least you're like, well, you know what? We won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and I went out with my friends that night, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have that. Like you can hold on to that forever. And this team doesn't. Like this team is the most of course team of all time to me, and at least Dallas Cowboys team. And by that, I mean, like, of course that would happen. Like the inevitable, like the funniest possible thing that can happen against them does and continues to. That Derrick Henry went off. I mean, like, absolutely went off against them was completely and totally of course. That the New Orleans Saints have lost 7 games in a row, none of them that are really competitive since blowing the doors off of them, I mean, is of course. That they just lost to the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, after going on this in the middle of this 7-game losing streak, with the last win being against the Cowboys, and then that the Cowboys would act better than the Panthers and the Saints and be buyers at the trade deadline when the Panthers and Saints have one fewer win than they do, is the most of course thing of all time. I mean, it is. I'm not a wrestling fan. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Like, I was never into WWF or WWE. It just wasn't my thing or whatever. But I did watch the Vince McMahon documentary, and I get the like comparison that people make. Like, and I say that like that was literally my first exposure to that world and that time. And I get how people like equate them to the Cowboys, because this is just a joke, man. Like, and the things I tweeted out a meme on the trade deadline day after the Mingo trade. I don't know if you saw. It was the scene from The Office when Pam is talking to Michael Scott and he's dating her mom, and she's like, stop dating my mom. And he just with like contempt says, I'm going to start dating her even harder. Like, that's who Jerry Jones is right now. Like, he's truly screwing with us. And like you mentioned the stadium tours thing, arguing with the fan hosts. I mean, you know, that Trayvon Diggs argued with a local reporter after they lost to Big Brother Daddy San Francisco again. It's exhausting. It's truly difficult to keep track of now.
Can't say I hate to see it, honestly. I know you're down bad and like it can't hurt you almost in a way of how disappointing it is, but it's nice to see. I will say, speaking of course, I mean, like, shame on you for thinking the Cowboys would actually finally break the NFC East division winner streak.
That would have
been
just
not going to happen ever. It's just not going to happen.
Now I'm kind of willing to believe that it's just never going to happen. But yeah, okay.
The worst thing you can do in the NFC East is win the NFC East.
Also, of course, Dan Quinn, like the chosen one that I was out on, and I'm very still content with that decision relative to what was happening with the Cowboys. Of course, Dan Quinn would go to Washington, of all places, and make it cool and fun and whatever. So, okay, you're up on a thing.
I'll go to the Eagles. We already talked about Saquon, so I guess I'll move over to the defense here, which it's been good, man. Like, I was just looking up the numbers today. Going to do a Q&A exchange here with Dave Halprin on Blogging the Boys, so you can check that out. And some of the numbers I was looking up, I was like, man, like, for a defense that only ranks 4th to last in spending, so it's not even just, and like, who are the household names on the Eagles defense? They don't have like these, like, they don't have like bona fide all pro kind of players there. Darius Slay is name cred, but he was also out last week. And he hasn't been my favorite player anyway, although he is having a good season relative to expectation. But anyway, Vic Fangio's Eagles defense this season, RJ, ranks 5th in success rate, 5th in opponent yards per play, 6th in opponent offensive points per game, 10th in defensive DVOA, and 12th in EPA per play. And I mentioned the spending thing. That's also with them having like bad turnover luck. They only had, I think, 2 prior to the Bengals game. And this year they only have 6 teams with fewer takeaways. Like, they're not just relying. It's not like, oh, they're getting all these turnovers and their defense is dominating. No, they haven't even had the takeaways, and they've been pretty awesome. And players who weren't expected to be great, like Zach Bond, who the Eagles signed, he was the 3rd player they signed in free agency. It was after Bryce Huff, who hasn't been good, and after Saquon. And everyone's like, okay, this is like a depth edge rusher kind of guy, whatever. And himself, Zach Bond, during his first press conference was like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to like getting back to rushing the passer after the Saints were kind of messing with me as an off-ball linebacker. And then on day 1 from Vic Fangio, we hear from him the first time, his press conference in the spring. He's asked about the linebacker position, inside linebacker, off-ball specifically. And he's like, Zach Bond. And everyone's like, what? Like, no one expected that. And here he is. He's looking awesome. He has like the 2nd highest coverage grade on Pro Football Focus, like behind Fred Warner. It's insane how good that guy has been. And I think that's very much a product of Vic Fangio getting the most out of lesser talent and unestablished players. So this Eagles defense, which like the expectations for the year, basically were just like, be solid. Just don't be a total disaster like you were at the end of last season. Just be competent. The offense can do the heavy lifting. They haven't faced the best quarterbacks, obviously, over this past 4-game stretch, although they did play well against Burrow. But they're legit.
I picked the Bengals in that game, and I really thought, oh man, this is going to be like the exposure of the Eagles or whatever, and it wasn't. And I agree with you, and I feel like what's most impressive is that it's happening in spite of all the like obvious things not working. Like the Nakobe Dean thing. I know he had the interception, right?
He has been working more
so
recently.
Like, well, I mean, but he hasn't realized the like initial moment of euphoria is all. But granted, that was peak like Howie Roseman is a god, whatever. Like, but I mean, the Devin White thing didn't work out, right? Like all the some things like were these like huge whiffs, and you would think like, oh, with multiple huge whiffs, call them however many you want, the bottom would come out, but it hasn't. Like, and it's because you have an adult in the room running the defense, and I think that there are, I don't know how many we can name, but there's a handful of, I would say defensive coordinators is definitely the archetype of like when you get that dude and he's coordinating your defense, like it's going to be good. Vic Fangio is one. Dan Quinn is obviously another. Wade Phillips is another one of those guys. Jim Schwartz. Yeah. Like there's just something like they can go anywhere and they will always find a way to be successful. And so it's smart to do the easy thing. And I think that if you allow me to kind of spin into my next thing, it is about the Eagles. I think that is a great quality of Nick Sirianni. Now, I'm going to
your boy.
I'm going to give Nick some credit on being less annoying this year, although I'm also upset that we didn't have the opportunity to talk after fighting with Eagles fans of all things.
Really bizarre.
So also like Nick, maybe like, you're not new around there. Like if you're going to fight with any fan base in the world, like maybe not the one to poke. Just, I mean, like
after you like barely beat the Browns by 4 points.
I know. So, and that you now have multiple games where you've done this to the fan base, the stadium in general. It's also not a good look, but he is the weirdest mix of like the most annoying person in the world and a really good football coach. And I think part of what makes him a really good football coach is, and we as a football society don't give enough credit to the like quote unquote walk around head coaches. People act like, well, what's he doing? He's not calling plays. And that can be a fair criticism at times. But I think that Nick is kind of a really good manager. I mean, what I'm about to say is going to sound really stupid, and it wouldn't be a proper mixtape episode without like an outlandish thing that I said about the Eagles happening. Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl, and in that sense, that makes him like untouchable and the first Super Bowl and all the stuff, whatever.
Bunch of injuries to that team.
Right. So, and not to
quarterback.
Not to take anything away. I think certainly if the Eagles were to win a Super Bowl under Nick Sirianni, my point is even more proven. I think like on the whole, Nick Sirianni is like arguably. It's also Andy Reid's unique, but like he is one of the best coaches in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. Like I feel confident in that. Like they are so successful under him. And we are so quick to give all the credit here, there, wherever. And I feel like Eagles fans are now chief among this group. Like nobody wants to give Nick Sirianni any credit whatsoever. Like the guy deserves more than his fair share at this point. And he has, to that point, also, incited a lot of things and dug his own grave a lot of times. And he's made things a lot more harder than they have to be. But I think he's a top
key point.
He's a top. In the NFC, I think the only coaches who I think are 100% better than him are Kyle Shanahan, and I'm not willing to go there on Dan Campbell yet.
Wow.
Not yet.
I think the thing with Sirianni, there is a case to be made, obviously, that he's deserves more credit. He's underappreciated because you just look at the win-loss record. It's obviously great. It's hard to argue with that when you just look at that alone. But I think you have to count for the feel. You have to count for the league itself said Howie Roseman did a better job in 2022. Like they gave Howie executive of the year. And I think me going into this season, I projected the Eagles to go 3-14. I felt like that was a little high, but I was like, I'm looking at the schedule here and I'm looking at their talent. I believe in their talent. I don't really, but at the same time, I still have them winning like one game in the playoffs and then losing because I think as that margin for error shrinks, I don't trust Nick Sirianni, especially when it comes to game management. Now this
sucks, but that doesn't mean he's not good. I mean, like just because you don't trust him doesn't mean he isn't good at what he's doing.
I think, but you even mentioned it in there in terms of like making it harder than it has to be. I think there is something to like he might bring the talent down a little bit. I think he's been at his best this season in game, especially. I think the culture stuff is a reset. I give him credit for that. That's rebounded from where it was late last year. That's absolutely relevant. I give him total credit for that. And I've also been willing to give him credit for that in the past as like one of the best things he does. But like the game management hasn't been good. And I'm worried it could bring the talent down. Like at the very least, I just need him to stay out of the way. And I think he did that really well in a couple of these wins, specifically against the Giants and the Bengals. Like, just don't mess it up. Like, you don't have to. Ideally, you want your coach to give you an edge and get more out of less. But, like, I will settle for just don't mess it up. Like, don't drag the team down. And that's my concern.
I get that, but like that's not how like what this team is. You know what I mean? Like in a perfect world,
it is what it is. There's a ton of talent. Just don't screw it up.
I trust him. I'm looking at other teams. To use that word, I trust him. I trust that he will get a better performance out of his team more than I do Sean McDermott, more than I do Zach Taylor. Like to use some other coaches who generate a lot of buzz, obviously. More than I do Jim Harbaugh. I've been so unimpressed with that. I mean, it's been so boring.
I think Sean McVay, who is not my boy, especially when it comes to
not our boy. That's an us thing.
When it comes to game management, but he is a really good. I think getting more out of less, and obviously scheme and all that.
I also we every now and then offer a take on the mixtape, and I want to get this in here so it's on the record. Mike McDaniel is so overrated, and nobody coming for him is proof that nobody cares about the Dolphins. Like they are so bad, and nobody talks about it ever. And I've actually in things I've written said like if the Eagles were having that season, Nick Sirianni would be like the leading subject point on SportsCenter and NFL Live every single day. But like it's like it's the Dolphins, whatever. It's like whatever. So that was my thing. Go Nick Sirianni. Yeah.
I guess then my next thing would be like what's going on with let's talk all things like Cowboys quarterback situation in terms of like Dak Prescott obviously not playing this week, might go on IR. We'll see. Jerry said that is going to happen. And there's some tough games coming up too. You play like the Texans next. Who else is? I don't know. Some other tough teams. I don't know.
Texans and then at Commanders the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
Okay, so missing some key games here.
And then the Giants on Thanksgiving, and then the Bengals on Monday Night Football in the Simpsons alternate cast.
I did see that. I have no comment on that. I mean, I love the Simpsons. Nothing against the Simpsons, but just
never seen an episode.
Anyway, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I don't know what I was doing in the 90s that like I wasn't into WWE and The Simpsons. I mean, but whatever. To answer your question, it looks likely.
Wait, I wasn't even done posing it. So yeah, Dak hurt. I wasn't done. Dak is hurt, but he was playing, I think, as you have said, many people I've seen say, worst football of his career prior to getting hurt. And again, kind of goes into the Mike McCarthy thing, not really set up for success in the most helpful way, but still like not making the most of the situation and turning the ball over way too much. So I want to talk about Dak here, and then but I also want to talk about like long term, like how you're feeling about him and what this kind of season he had, but also what's going on for this week in terms of who starts, who should start.
More than one thing can be true. It was absolutely the right decision to pay Dak. It took way too long. I said before the Eagles paid Jalen Hurts that was the time to do it. He was eligible. You could have done it right then. And Jalen Hurts is what APY? 52 million APY. Is that correct? Or 51?
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, and Dak's at 60. I mean, so like it's stupid. I mean, like this will get forgotten as we get further and further away from it. They signed him on literally the day that the season began.
I remember.
Like literally in the morning shows on that Sunday is when it happened. And it was so dumb and it was ridiculous. And they just wanted the attention. So, and good for Dak. I mean, good for Dak. And I know you've given him props for this, for not bending the knee, and he could have wielded even more power. Yeah. Like if you think about it, but
unprecedented amount if he
right. But he, so like, it sounds stupid. And there's the, like, he sucks people that will, whatever. But like he signed for $60 million a year, and it was a team-friendly discount, like in the like grand overall potential scheme. But to get away from that, because we've discussed that ad nauseum, I think that sometimes we can look at quarterbacks and look at like breakpoints in their careers. And I think for Dak, 2019 is one of them, which incidentally was the final year of his rookie contract. That was when John Kitna was his quarterback's coach, and that was the first year of Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. And he really turned into a different kind of passer, a much more aggressive aerial passer. Before then, it was kind of the Zeke show, and he was just viewed as a game manager, bus driver, whatever. So this is unquestionably the worst year of his career in that time, like the post of evolution. There's still a case to be made. It's his career on the whole, but that 2017 season was really, really tough. Obviously the Zeke suspension didn't help, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, not making chicken salad, which you can definitely put on Dak. And that contract, while it's unfair, it is kind of fair to say, dude, you're getting all the money, you're the quarterback and the most important person. Like you have, and look, I have said many times that Dak doesn't step a single toe out of line, which is why when he said the thing about the people throwing stuff at officials a few years back, that was so out of character for Dak when they lost to the Niners in the playoffs. And do you remember when they were throwing beer bottles and stuff? So Dak has had a few moments like that this year alone. At training camp, and obviously the vibes have not been great. Dak was asked about like, well, fans hate everything, blah, blah. And he said, well, you need to get over it. Like, and I'm paraphrasing. He was like, it probably hurt us more than it hurt you because we're on the team. And it's like, hey, now chill out a little bit, Dak, because this has been our team a lot longer than it's been yours or CD's or whatever. Like, I know a lot of you grew up rooting for the team, but like there's no wrong way to be a fan. So you can't tell me that I have to get over something. Not that I want to harp on it, but that was the first like, whoa, that's a little bit interesting kind of comment from Dak. And then that he said he got caught on camera saying that they suck. I mean, like this past week, which is
he said more than that, but yes,
I know, but like
that.
It was a very, very, very left foot moment for Dak. And so like everything, and I don't look, it's been exhausting to be him. Like, surely, like it's there's been incredible wealth associated with it. There's no doubt about that. But like the dude couldn't even properly announce that he was engaged to be married without, idiots on the internet taking over and making the Instagram posts like toxic and whatever. So I'm willing to give him some leniency, but I'm also in a football sense, willing to say that I would be lying if I said I didn't have concerns now about like health. I mean, it's been this here, this there. I mean, obviously he had the shoulder, whatever it was in 2021, where he missed a singular game. Obviously that's after the ankle in 2020. He had in 2022 the thumb issue. I mean, so like some of these are weird, happenstance, coincidence things. But yeah, I mean, like I'd be lying if you can't be 0% worried. If you're only 5% worried, that's fine, but you can't be 0% worried in full honesty right now. It was still the right decision to pay him, to be completely clear. Cooper Rush is going to start, which is insanely stupid. And
is that official? Like,
that's how
I haven't seen it officially said. I know that like is the expectation.
That's how they're talking. I mean, and that's how the team is talking.
I'm not doubting it. I just wanted confirmation.
But to add to that point, it is stupid, and it's not Cooper's fault because like Cooper Rush helped that 2022 team, obviously, but this team is not in that spot. Not only not in that spot, like literally they were 0-1 when Cooper had to come in, but they had maybe the best defense in the NFL, and they don't have that right now.
In a running game, to help.
Yeah, and you're just gonna throw this like time away. And look, Trey Lance is not under contract either because this is the final year of Cooper's deal. But at the very least, like justify the pick, man. Like at the very least, make it fun. And that they can't start Trey Lance because he hasn't developed is such an indictment against their overall process on what was obviously a bad trade the moment that they executed it, and that it all is happening in the same week on the same days that they sent another 4th-round pick to one of the worst wide receiver or for one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL to the Carolina Panthers. It's peak hilarity at this point.
Yeah, I think first on Dak, he turns 32 next year. Like it's not like, ancient in today's NFL for quarterbacks, but it's not young either. So that's that on him. But I think actually how the Cowboys have handled their quarterback configuration makes sense. With Cooper should be like the backup on game day because you feel like he can come in if Dak has to miss time within a given game and kind of
if Dak's got to miss a series or something, totally,
sure.
Completely with you.
But yeah, if we're talking about a longer stretch, like at that point, especially with the outlook kind of looking bleak, it's like, let's see what Trey Lance has. Maybe he can give us a spark. Maybe he can be the answer in the future. Unlikely, but there's possibility there where what Cooper Rush is. He's not anything other than a decent backup quarterback to have on game day. So if I were the Cowboys, I'd be playing Lance.
Even if there weren't a possibility, even if you don't believe there was one, you paid for it believing that there is. It's like ordering food for the table and being like, I'm really hungry, but I'm good. Like I know I paid for the appetizer, but these potato skins just they aren't hitting for me. So just take them back, throw them away. I'm good. It's stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, Eagles played the Cowboys in 2022 with Cooper Rush, and that did not really go so well for him. We'll see how that is this week. The line is at where's it at now? -7, opened at 6.5, and that's on the road. And for the context, by the way, Eagles 7-point road favorites in Dallas, where they've not won since 2017. The Eagles opened as 6.5 home favorites against the Jags. For context, that's pretty brutal.
I mean,
by the way, the most probably disrespectful line I've ever seen was last week when the Saints were something like 11-point or whatever 7, whatever it was, road favorites.
No, the worst was when the Chiefs were dogs against the Niners. That was so stupid. That was free money.
No, that's dumb. I'm saying this was so pathetic for Panthers fans to be massive underdogs at home to a team that has lost 6 games in a row, and they won. So whatever. But anyway,
So also to contextualize where the Cowboys are at in their funk, it's difficult to put this in a tweet, but I tried the other day. So the last game they won at home was the Saturday night win against Detroit last year, the penultimate game of the regular season, the controversial ending. That was the night that Jimmy Johnson went into the Ring of Honor, if you recall. They have lost every home game since, and not only lost, but like been humiliated. Like,
that's so funny because like they were so good at home. Like, how does that just flip?
Well, like, I mean, I'm not a believer in curses or anything like that, but like maybe there's like a new curse. You know what I mean? Like they've lost every, and not only have they lost every single game, but like what's the one good? Like I'm legitimately asking you, like, what has happened to the Cowboys since that moment in time to where you're like, damn, that sucks, or man, or not even damn, that sucks. Like, oh man, I wish that hadn't happened. Name one thing. Like the big external free agent who they signed, Eric Kendricks, agreed to terms with the 49ers earlier in that day. Like, I mean, name the thing, the one thing. It could be small.
It wasn't even like, well, it changed from season to season because it was still last year in the playoffs. So like the Packers came to town. Like it was the same team from last year that still had that happen, and then this carry over into the next season. So I don't know. It's weird. But I think you're up next on your fourth thing.
Well, I'm supposed to get a call. I tried to delay it. So if
from
you
who?
and I, it's a radio hit. So if you and I have to take a break in real time,
big time.
we might have to do
the
that.
Interview during the. Okay.
No, I didn't. We were scheduled to be done with this by now, but you had to delay it on a last second sort of notice thing. So we might have to, in terms of you and I and our recording, pause this and come back. But just heads up.
When? Now?
In a moment. It was supposed to happen at 12:15, but I texted and asked if I could delay, and I haven't heard back. So I'll bring up my thing, and then we'll kind of figure this out as we go along. I mean, my thing on the Cowboys is we haven't had any podcasts to be able to like say these things out loud. Like I still put videos out on our YouTube channel and stuff, and I know you've been doing stuff with Shield the Ringer, and that's awesome. But like, man, I legitimately like football less. And I feel the way you seem to feel near the tail end of last season when the collapse was happening. Like I thought it was a bid at first. And when we did the mixtape before that Cowboys-Eagles game, when Dallas destroyed them on Sunday Night Football, and it's not just that I clearly like the Cowboys less, but like, it's like, okay, I guess, you know, I could either watch Monday Night Football.
No, it's just definitely a real thing.
Or the new season of The Diplomat. You know, like I could put Monday Night Football on the iPad and just kind of have it on. You know,
well, it makes sense because it just doesn't matter. Like it's you want to watch the other game because like, oh, this could matter. I'm rooting against the other team for seeding or whatever.
Or like, you know, just to like, my team's better than that. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
My team needs one of those, or my team should be doing this. Like, it's all so like meaningless and boring. And I mean, like, and I think that Cowboys fans feel that way. And so like, a lot of them, not all. I think it's stupid because we often do that. We act like one opinion speaks as the voice of the fan base, right? Like, oh, I'm seeing Cowboys fans say this, but I'm using my thing to tell Eagles fans how Cowboys fans in their lives may be feeling. You've heard us say before, like, oh, whatever, and there will always be some Cowboys fans who are like, this is our year, blah blah blah. I named the time I've ever been like that, but. What I will say is like, man, like this is a different kind of detachment. Like maybe they hire Ben Johnson and maybe, you know, they do enough to rope me in over the offseason. I'm not going to say that that's impossible.
They will. I will guarantee actually they will do that.
Well, maybe,
in terms of the roping you in.
Hopefully we're mixtaping by then and you can, you know, document it at least. But at least the way we're experiencing it right now, this is a different level of disgust and annoyance and just like, I mean, if they weren't such a big part of my life, and obviously they're my living, but like if even beyond that, like I'm going to the Cowboys Texans game with my dad. I'm really excited about it, and I haven't been to one, you know, in the stands in a very long time. And I'm excited about that and going with my dad, but it's just like, man, like this and it ruins the best time of year. Like it's like, you know, the fall weather's taking a while to cooperate fully, but it's like, you know, okay, yeah, the Christmas music's playing at the stores and whatever, but it's just like the coolest part of the year is ruined.
I'm so sorry for you. I feel so bad. No, I feel good about it. I do think, though, to an optimistic point, I do think things could be a lot different next year with a different coach, depending on who they hire. I think that I would find it hard pressed, but maybe I'm wrong, that they will do more than nothing at all next offseason. Although maybe not on the best start if the moves are going to be like the Mingo trade, which I think is very insane. Not even just because like
Okay,
It's not
now
about
you
this
have to-
year.
Now you have to pause, and we're gonna have to come
Okay.
back, and I'll send you a link in like 10 minutes.
Wow, what a cliffhanger.
We are back. The radio hit was great.
Nice.
PLG, while we were in our pseudo break, you said that you downloaded a new recipe for something that you were
Interesting
going
that
to
I
be
was
cooking.
talking to you during your radio hit, and you picked that
Wow.
up.
What recipe did you download to make?
Recipe? I actually have a
Actually, I want
box
to ask a different question to Riff, if you're
coming
okay with
to
it.
me. Sure.
What was your favorite piece of Halloween candy that you got last week?
Twix.
So something very cool. I haven't had a chance to say this on a podcast yet. Do you recall a few weeks back? Now that my radio hit's done, I have time to ramble. So a few weeks back when the Cowboys played in Pittsburgh and that game got delayed. Do you remember? It got delayed by like 90 minutes. So during the delay, it was this weird kind of time where time stood still. And I was tweeting out all these random things and just having fun in the weird moment of it all. And so I tweeted out my top 5 movie candies. I think this is something that we've discussed before, like candies or snacks to eat while you're at the movie theater. And number 1 on my list was Bunch of Crunch, which is fantastic. And, I don't mean this in a influencer way, but like the tweet kind of took off and did a little bit well. And the Crunch people reached out to me. And
I was going to reach out to you about this. I was like, where's my crunch? Give me some crunch.
They were like, thank you so much for shouting us out. We really appreciate it. They asked for my address, not to dox me, to use one of your favorite terms. But they sent me a huge care package with the minis, the regular Crunch bars, several boxes, a bunch of Crunch. It was very cool.
Bunch of Crunch.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Now you're just doing it to like ride the wave. You know what I mean? You got to be a trendsetter on your own. So.
I would like some Crunch. So if they're listening, send me some Crunch. Anyway, Jonathan Mingo trade is where I left off. Really bizarre move. I get it. It's not just about the rest of the season. Like, that's not what it concerns me for the sake, not really concerns me, but that's not the concern with the trade. It's more that he's not a good player on a team where like other players are outperforming him and bizarre. And to my point, the larger point I was making there is like, I think the Cowboys they'll rebound after this bad season that they're going to have, but I don't know to the extent of which that rebound will be. And certainly the front office isn't inspiring a lot of confidence. I think, I just think they'll be better. It'll feel better than it does right now, but I also don't know how good it'll feel. Anything will be an improvement, and it's cyclical. Like you can't help, you're right. You go cyclical over cyclical.
Yeah. What's a cycle? Not a sickle.
Could be.
I know that. Anyway, there will be something, but I tweeted this the other day as well. I think there's a world where next offseason is even more toxic from a fan base perspective.
How so?
Because that's what I was going to say. Because every move will be met with like utter disdain. Like everything will be like, well, you should have done this last year, or like, why should we believe you? And like Bob Sturm, who's wonderful at the ticket and has a great Substack, he had I love when people use gestures hands around wildly in a text form. You know what I'm saying? Like when they write that in a tweet or something like that. And he used that right after the Mingo trade. He said, this is what happens when gestures hands around wildly. You burn up the benefit of the doubt. And that's where the Cowboys are. Like nothing, like you can forever perpetually be like, oh, it's going to fail. It's going to blow up in their face, whatever. And it not be founded in any kind of logic. And like Murphy's Law, you'll probably be right at this point in time. And so, I mean, they've lost a lot of homers, and maybe some of them will crawl back to your point. But I do think people will be like, oh, so now you want to trade, or now you want to sign, or now you want to extend early. And they will have consequences from this, is my point, for a very long time.
Well, you'll have
in the eyes of the fans.
You'll have the Micah Parsons extension, right, to celebrate, unless they trade him to the Eagles where he actually does want to play.
I do think that like riles any of us up at this point. Like,
I mean, it is what it is. It's not about riling. It's just true.
It's
true.
Cool. Okay, great.
Anyway,
you have one more thing, and then we can move on to the Commanders and Giants.
I mean, it's kind of like, it's tough because it's a matchup here where
talk about the actual game. Okay.
Right. Well, I was looking forward to this one because even with the Cowboys struggling, it's like, okay, one of the few times we get to see Dak Prescott go up against Jalen Hurts
We literally saw it the last time they played, and you told us that game didn't count.
It didn't, and it did count, but it wasn't
you were like,
a particularly interesting matchup with even footing.
I don't care about this one, so whatever.
I said they were going to lose. It was guaranteed they're going to lose. They're coming off. They were at a terrible spot. Anyway.
Okay, but again, we saw it, and now it's like, oh, well, we never see it. We literally just saw it the last time they played.
But we don't see it as often as we should, which is
the point. We literally just the last time it happened, it was this. So
I'm not saying we never see it. I'm saying we don't see it like there's too many times. The point is, and you'll agree with this, or you should agree with this.
We saw it in both games last year. Both games were Dak Hurts.
That's so rare. That's what I mean. Like that's a rare
has been
thing
in the NFL for like
see.
10 minutes. I mean, so this is
there since 2020.
We've seen the same matchup
fifth season now.
Okay.
Anyway. We're not seeing it this weekend is the point. And that has also been a common trend throughout this Eagles-Cowboys matchup or games, regardless, in Week 18, where the game actually doesn't matter. So, but this one does matter, I would say, at least for the Eagles, and being able to kind of like stick a fork in the Cowboys, basically, at this point. So there is that. And I guess that's really the big angle for the game. Is there any hope for you, number one, that the Cowboys can actually win this game? And like, if they did, would you be like, season is back on?
No, there's nothing that could convince me this season is back on. So this is the 17th time, I believe, that the Cowboys have had 3 or fewer wins through their first 8 games. They're 3-5, obviously. And outside of 2020, which was, the quarterback's hurt, the season's over type thing. The last time they were in this spot was 2018. And everybody remembers that, obviously, because they traded for Amari Cooper. They were actually 3-4 when they made that trade. And then they lost that first game with him in the Monday Night Football game that Jason Witten called, the Jason Witten who would return from the booth to play for them the next year. The same team who employs Zeke Elliott at the moment in time. But anyway, so they lost that game to fall to 3-5. Now they played the Eagles just like now when they were 3-5. That game was in Philly. That was kind of I wouldn't say we felt the same. I don't remember how you felt then, but it was a do or die game at that moment, especially because they had just traded for Amari. It felt like they could fire Jason Garrett. They should fire Jason Garrett, whatever. They won, I think, 5 in a row to rip them off. And so, I mean, they kind of stole that division. So even if they did win this game, it'd be like, cool, you're 4-5. Now you got to play the Texans. And I know they're a little bit down right now, but then like, I don't view the Eagles, and I really am not trolling, as the threat in the division. I think it's Washington now.
Sure. I mean, they're first.
So like, barring a collapse from them, like they're at a point now where they're not just 3-5. They would have to do very, very well and get some help beyond their control. So now you're really asking for a lot. And I just, again, there's nothing that could really happen that would make me feel like season's back on.
And then even if like they're in the wild card mix, they don't have the tiebreaker over the 49ers, so they have that going against them. You're probably like realistically hoping for a 7th seed at best in terms of being able to make the playoffs. Realistically, you're probably hoping the team bottoms out, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and that's why like they are at the bottom. Like that's why like starting Cooper Rush is so like empty calories to me. You know what I mean? Like I did want to put something on your radar. Maybe you can create some sort of content about this if it does happen. So every week I shout out to Stathead and the Pro Football Reference. Every week I comb through the recent game for the Cowboys and look for like, things that stand out or whatever, and kind of look at them through the lens of both Cowboys franchise history and NFL history, just to kind of see like, oh, wow, they're the first team to do this, or they're the first team since whoever to do this. So the Cowboys have a 5-game streak at home of something horrible. They have allowed 415 total yards.
Wow.
This dates back to last year, obviously, to that Lions game, actually, that we were talking about a moment ago, or a lot of moments ago for you and I in real time. But anyway, so in 5 consecutive games in their building, they have allowed 415 total yards. So that's the number for the Eagles to reach. Because if the Eagles do, the Cowboys will have the longest home streak ever. The Cowboys are one of 2 teams to have a 5-game home streak of such variety. The other team was the 2012 New Orleans Saints with Rob Ryan calling the shots. So if the Eagles hit 415 total yards, they put the Cowboys in misery all by themselves.
How do you think this game goes then?
I don't think the Eagles get there because I think this is like, I think it's like 20-3 at halftime. You know what I mean? And then I think like the first possession of the second half is like a pick 6. You know what I mean? And it just kind of gets away early. I I did and not to continue to brag, but I did an appearance on the PST Table Talk podcast that we both know and love.
Yeah.
Shout
out to Jeff.
And Jeff was asking me, like, do you think Saquon, I forgot what number he threw out for Saquon. It was like 140 or maybe it was lower than that. I was like, dude, I would take the under, like, because it's not going to be necessary. Like, Saquon's going to be at like 70 yards when this thing gets out of hand, and there's going to be no reason to continue to put him in jeopardy. So I wouldn't touch anything like that, just because this is a really bad Cowboys team with a healthy Dak Prescott.
Right.
So what we're about to see is about to be pretty gross.
Yeah, I like the Eagles to cover. Obviously, if no A.J. Brown, and we don't yet know his status as we're recording this at 1:50 Eastern on Wednesday, November 6th, possibly plays, possibly doesn't. And maybe the Eagles want to hold him out, especially because this is like a really important 1-2 stretch here with the Eagles playing the Washington Commanders next Thursday. So ideally, the Eagles come in here, they make a statement, go up early on the Cowboys, put a fork in the Cowboys season, basically, although it might be already cooked, and then get your starters out of the game and be able to kind of, have that little leg up coming back to the link on Thursday Night Football for a incredibly crucial game against the Commanders. We'll see how the Commanders do this week. They got the Steelers. Russ, your boy. Interested to see how that one goes. But regardless of the results in that one, will be a really big game for probably the division lead in Philly. So
yeah. Dan and I were we were both on the Hawks, and he was coordinating the defense, and I was playing quarterback, and every practice felt like the Super Bowl. I mean, and we won the Super Bowl. I mean, all of us together as one. And so we're on different sides now, and he's trying to win that Super Bowl, and we're trying to get number 7 here in the Berg, and so it's gonna be a great time.
He doesn't have like a thing. You know that, right? He doesn't have like a thing this year. He's not early yet.
No, I forget what it was. When they were on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Melissa Stark.
Yep.
Yeah, she had to report. She said it. Whatever it was going to be.
She asked him.
Yeah, and she said that he said that it was going to like come back if they won that game, and they did. So I don't know where. But
he didn't say it. Yeah. So he's waiting to break it out.
Good for him.
Very interesting. But I guess what would it even be? Would it be something about how like the Eagles and Steelers used to be, one franchise? The Eagles and Steelers do play in a later this season, but I'm not
it would
sure.
Be I've been thinking a lot about what to say, and I thought about going something black and yellow. It's so cool, you got the Penguins and the Pirates, but I'm ready, and it's fries on a sandwich. They're good.
He probably should say black and yellow. Maybe that might be the best thing.
That's that wouldn't be new and unique though. That what I mean. That's just.
But like the Steelers don't have a great thing. They have "Here We Go," their fight song, but that's Dak says that. And
they have "Renegade." That's kind of like their thing.
Yeah, I mean that is a cool thing. I actually like, and I think it's funny. It's very Pittsburgh, but you can't. It's not like
fries on a sandwich. How about Pittsburgh is the best city in Pennsylvania?
That's what you want him to say. That's really catchy. Not true. Number 1 and 2. Anyway. So that's this week's game. Do we want to talk about the rest of the NFC East, I guess?
Yeah. So do you want to go Giants? I think we could do Giants first, just because it's not going to take long.
We have to go in order from the rest.
We didn't go in order.
What
are you talking about? We went
the exception of this game. So the Commanders.
No, they deserve more time. That's what I'm saying. Like I want to just like.
So the Giants. I mean, what's there to say? It's what we've always said for basically the inception of this podcast. Like, bad organization. Nothing to hang their hat on. And although we did say when they hired Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, like, oh, maybe the Giants could finally be back on the right path. Joe Shane, I think, has been especially bad. It hasn't been called out. Like you're talking about Mike McDaniel not getting called out earlier. I don't think Joe Shane is proper. I mean, he's been a little bit more with the Saquon stuff being so public and on Hard Knocks like that. But like, it's not even just that move, though. He's made a lot of other bad moves and bad decisions since he's been there. And if I could only keep one of them, I'd keep Daboll over Shane. I think, it sounds like they might keep both, which would be, fantastic. Great. Please do that.
I think that Joe Shane is the shield for Brian Daboll. Like, I don't think highly of Brian Daboll, to be clear, but I don't think like super low either. I think there's logic to bringing them both back. Again, this is why when when you decide something, stick to it. And that's why they should have just gotten rid of Daniel Jones to begin with. The worst thing that happened to them was that 2022 season and that mirage. And
they should have franchise tagged him, if anything.
I mean, it's just, I understand, like I've said many times, why they paid him, and they didn't, they didn't set the market when they did. I mean, that was obvious, in and of itself that he.
I think it's fair to see one more season in that circumstance. Usually,
sure.
I agree with you, yes, but I think that was a unique circumstance where you want to see it one more time before you pay. And if you have to pay more in the short term, it's worth it.
What I will say though is, like, I do think that all the Giants exist to me now, or the only way they exist to me is as the straw that can break the camel's back for this Dallas Cowboys season. The Cowboys host the Giants on Thanksgiving. And if they finally lose to the Giants, you know what I mean? Like in a public, humiliating way, like that might be enough because they've just owned them entirely. Exactly. And so I'm hoping that happens on some level, obviously. But I don't know what the answer is. Like, a year ago, we were like, maybe Russ is their quarterback. Maybe Dak, if he hits free agency in 2025, will be their quarterback. Like, I don't know what that answer is.
Well, you have to try, and they haven't tried. Like, that's part of the equation here. Like, they should have drafted a quarterback this year. Like, Malik Neighbors, yeah, he's awesome. Okay, doesn't matter if you don't have a quarterback. Like, it was an obvious spot. And, we'll see how McCarthy is, right? Because he would have been available to them. Drake May wasn't, but it seemed like if I'm not mistaken, they could have made like a better effort than they did based on some of the Hard Knocks stuff.
First of all, I think that no team will ever do that Hard Knocks again because the Giants are getting destroyed for that.
Incredible that was happening when we were not podcasting.
I know.
Really huge missed opportunity.
But so again, I think the Saquon stuff's been overblown, like against them. Like it's more than fair to like offer some level of criticism, but whatever. But the other thing that gets blown out of proportion was it his son that said Jaden Daniels should be awesome? Hey kid, he was gone. Like but people act like, man, Joe Shane sucks so much. Even his kid knew that he should have drafted Jaden Daniels. It's like how would they have taken him? Like the division rival was going to trade with him,
but he could have gotten May.
No, but my point is like dunking on him for that specifically is silly.
Yeah. Sure. But yeah, May was on the table. I think they realistically could trade it up. McCarthy, obviously Bo Nix. Yeah, you had to do something. And they didn't do anything other than sign Drew Lock. Like, okay, great. It doesn't really so
are we ready
presume it's what's funny kind of right now, last thing on the Giants. Not so funny for them. They're tied for the worst record with a bunch of other teams at 2-7, but their strength of schedule has been so difficult, and that's the tiebreaker when teams have the same record. So it's like they're in the worst spot, that they're terrible and they face all these bad teams, but they're being punished for it, and other teams are ahead of them in the draft order. So you and I and all the other NFC East non-Giants fans are certainly rooting for them to win some games here down the stretch so they don't get that top pick.
I don't know that you knew this, but so the Cowboys played them on Thursday Night Football. We didn't get to do our Cowboys have to do a road Thursday night game off of a Sunday for the first time ever thing. Wow. That would have been a lot of fun.
Wait, they did, right? They didn't do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 2 years ago, they did do a road Thursday game, but they had played the Eagles on.
But not Sunday to Thursday.
Right. They played the Eagles on Christmas Eve, which was a Saturday that year. Yeah. So they went Saturday to road Thursday. This year, they went Sunday to road Thursday, and it was a big thing. And so we would have had fun with that. But
how'd they play?
Well, they beat the Giants, and
they also play well.
They also beat the Titans. Then, they didn't play well because they stink. Like that wasn't because of part of it. But what I wanted to bring up about that game, I've never seen anything like this, and I forget how many teams had done it because I did look it up. But the Giants had 26 rushing yards that night. Okay, on 24 carries. That's impossible. Like that's actually impossible to think about.
It's not impossible. It happened.
I mean, but you get my point. So okay, are we ready to move on to the Commanders?
Commanders are legit. Jaden Daniels looks I even in week 2 when they played the Giants and they played that game where they didn't even score a touchdown, they won with 6 or whatever, 7 field goals or whatever. Like the composure that he had was really stood out to me and has throughout really the season. And I'm not alone thinking that. I'm not saying that, but I just think he's been so impressive. And obviously the Hail Mary, I think he's actually gotten too much credit for that. He's part of the play, but it's not skill. It's deflected ball, it's luck. But credit to him for gutting that game out through an injury and certainly looking better than the guy who was taken ahead of him by leaps and bounds, Caleb Williams. Yikes! But yeah, I think Daniels is for real. There is obviously the kind of RG3 comparisons going on of is this gonna last? Because I think Daniels is looking better than RG3 did. Or at least more sustainable, and I think isn't running as much. It looks more, elevated as a passer. But I do think with his frame and everything, and how he has gotten a little bit banged up early, that's a legitimate. It's not a non-story. It's a legitimate thing that could unseat them. And also, just again, the nature of this division. It's not Jaden Daniels is here, and now the Commanders are going to win the division every year. That's not how this division goes.
So. I am at this point, and this was 12 years ago. So I don't know if you agree with this, but like what's it been? They've I don't think they've had their bye, so they're 9 games in. Through the first 9 games, I'm more afraid of the Jaden Daniels era than I was the RG3 era. Like the RG3 era never felt like I was never really worried that was going to become like a full-on thing. You know,
well, they were 3-6 that team, right?
Well, no, I think they were 2-7. And I think they won out.
Okay.
And they beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. That was a big old deal. But like what he was just, and I know it was happening at the same time as Colin Kaepernick and everything, but it never felt like it was going to really stick. I know that's easy to say with hindsight, but
Dan Snyder was still there. Yeah.
Right. And that's a big part of it. Like they just, I don't think that this is outlandish. They seem kind of cool. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like it seems cool and it seems fun, and
their vibes are undeniably like really good.
Yeah. And like the Hail Mary thing is like, that's when, like, I don't mean it's your year, like they're going to win the Super Bowl, but like that's when like it's real, like it's actually happening for you.
Yep.
And those black uniforms rock, man. Like those, if they get rid of the lines bordering the last names on the back, it's their best uniform. Like they shouldn't wear anything else. It's all, the helmet is great. Like I love it. And if I'm being honest too, it is kind of cool to see that fan base like get a little full of themselves. Like no, like it's always fun to beat them. Don't get me wrong, but like it's cool to see them have something legitimate. You know what I mean, and not just to be like Ryan Kerrigan is awesome. You know what I mean? Like they have, because it's not just Jaden Daniels. It's everything about them. And I mean, I think they're going to win the division, and it will be their like. I don't put a lot of stock into their recent division titles because they all came, at least when the Cowboys suffered season-ending injuries to their quarterbacks. But this will be their like first true, authentic division title in a very, very long time.
If they won it, as opposed to like everyone else just lost it.
Right. I think this could be a year of them winning it. And I actually, from a theater standpoint, would like to see, it be contentious between them and Philly, because it obviously won't be Dallas. And see them take it from Philly, knock them off, even though they're not reigning division champions.
I think that's what's going to happen, basically. I mean, I think they play in week 16 again after they play on Thursday Night Football. So it's going to be...
That's in D.C.?
Yeah, that one will be at FedEx. Yeah. Well, it's in Landover, Maryland, but yes.
Man, and they're spending, like, they got Marshawn Lattimore. You know what I mean? Like, how cool! Like, it's just
that's a big acquisition for them. He's only like what, 28? Like, not even just for this year. He's not a rental. Like, this is a foundation player.
I think they have him for 2 more years. Now they might redo the deal and whatever.
Sure,
but who cares?
It's not a rental. Is the point? Yeah. Like, that's someone they could actually add, and at a big position of weakness for them too. Like, and it helps them. Like, Emmanuel Forbes is a disaster. That was like as a terrible pick. I think at the time, not just in hindsight with how small he is. But anyway, like that's a huge addition for them.
I've always thought that Dan Quinn was really smart about waiting for the right opportunity to be a head coach for the first time. So often, like people like Brian Dable, they not everyone's in as luxurious of a position as Dan Quinn was in Seattle, to where they can, like Kellen Moore kind of tried to be, obviously hasn't been a head coach yet, but where like I'm going to get multiple bites at the apple. And Dan, I don't remember off the top of my head how many interviews, if Dan Quinn took any before that Atlanta job came open after they fired Mike Smith. But like, you always want to go somewhere with like a planted, firm franchise quarterback, and he did. And I'm not taking anything away from Dan Quinn, obviously, but like they got really lucky in that Daniels has really hit. But they also like they're able to win when he's not like overpowering, which is representative of a good team, because they spent money. Like they understand that this is something that requires a lot of work and a lot of effort, and good for them.
He walked into a situation where they're the number 2 overall pick, and like I think the most cap space in the NFL, and a bunch of other draft picks too. And I think they've created a good environment there with like they signed some young kind of foundational players, but then you mix in Bobby Wagner, who's still really good. You have Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler. They added like a good mix of like young guys.
For Dorrance Armstrong or Dante Fowler.
Those guys too, to build around. Wow. But also some veterans too, to kind of, help like raise the floor and also kind of be like culture setters for a new regime. So, I mean, Adam Peters has done a really good job. He swindled the Eagles in the Jahan Dotson trade, which has not worked out well for them, and also emboldened them to make the Lattimore move. They didn't actually use the pick they got from the Eagles.
But it gave them more ground to stand on.
Absolutely. Like, and they could have made the trade without it, but like it gave them even more reason to be like, oh yeah, who cares? Like a 3rd round pick, we already have another one. So, although it looks like he may have lost the Cooper to Dean trade, that has really worked out well for the Eagles there. So, you take some, you lose some, win some, you lose some.
But the lesson to be learned, and this is where I'll reference the Cowboys again, isn't like, oh, well, we lost this or we won that, so we have to only do the things we won and never do the things that we lost. Like, no, man, like you keep trying, like you keep swinging, you keep trading, you keep moving, you keep whatevering. And I'm not out on Caleb Williams yet. That was, I mean, he's a tipped Hail Mary away from us thinking very differently about that game. And maybe
no, he looked really bad.
Okay, they looked really great in London before all that stuff. And man, I feel for Matt Eberflus. But either way, I think it's Washington's division. What are the odds, actually, as I say that?
I'm sure. Just look that up.
Ooh, it's our first mixtape, if we're calling that with FanDuel Sportsbook is our odds partner at SB Nation. Odds to win the NFC East. The Eagles are still the favorite. Oh my gosh, dude. So the Eagles are minus 145. The Commanders are plus 110. So it's pretty close. There's a sizable drop. The Cowboys are at plus 5,500, which is like, holy crap, that's really bad. The Giants are plus 55,000.
I will say the Commanders, I don't think they're frauds at all, but I will say they played the second easiest schedule this year in terms of strength of schedule.
But tell me the hard games remaining on their schedule. If you don't, here it is. So Steelers,
probably not a lot. I think that's a tough game.
I think it's tough. I'll say that. At Philly, definitely tough. Dallas,
not tough.
Right. And dude, Dan Quinn is gonna hang 50 on these fools. I mean, anyway. Tennessee, not tough.
Not tough. New Orleans,
dude, their bye is not until Sunday, December 8th. That is nuts.
It's a late bye.
At New Orleans with Marshawn Lattimore.
Not tough.
Philly again.
Tough. Atlanta's tough.
I don't think Atlanta's tough. I think.
Oh wow, your boy Kirk.
Man, we also didn't get to pod after Jalen Hurts. I know it was the Saquon tip, but after Kirk. But like, so the Saquon tip, and then Kirk leads the game-winning drive, and then Jalen Hurts throws the game-losing interception.
Also not going for
again,
it on fourth down.
My point is that would have been an all-time mixtape for me. Like I would have just loved that so much. But whatever.
Too bad. Anyway,
I don't. But I was gonna say on Atlanta, I recorded with Stats recently, and I didn't tell him this, but you can tell him I said it. The 49ers are going to look really bad this week. Like really bad. Maybe not really, really bad, but they're going to look bad. And people are going to go, what happened?
What do you mean?
What happened? Because the Niners looked great last time we saw them. Yeah, last time we saw them was against the Cowboys. And then they went on their bye.
I actually like the 49ers this week. They're playing a Bucs team coming off Monday Night Football. With the 49ers Monday Football. So I actually do think they're going to look good. Monday Night Football.
Monday. So
I actually don't agree with you. I get what you're saying, but I don't agree with you for this specific matchup.
My point is that will happen to Atlanta.
You think that's not hard?
Is my point. But anyway, at Dallas to wrap it up.
They finished the season in Dallas. So really they have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4.
Three
you
and
would
a
argue
half.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say 3.5.
3.5 hard games, and even if you assume they lose all of them, that puts them at 11-6. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I think
and they would also not have the tiebreaker over the Eagles.
I know. But I do think Philly has to sweep them to win the division. I think
possible. I think that's quite possible. Yeah. Also,
Because
5 of these games are on the road. I mean,
Philly,
three more, only 3 more on the road. 5 of them are at home.
So if we define if we do the tough game thing for the Eagles, at Dallas, no. Then Washington, that's 1.
Yeah.
At the Rams, definitely 2. At the Ravens, definitely 3.
Sure.
And then Panthers, whatever.
No.
Steelers,
yes.
I know. Steelers, yes. And then at Commanders. So you got 5. You got 5.
Sure.
5 is more than 4, BLG.
Sure.
Wow. Okay. Do we have anything else we want to say? We're emptying the tank.
Shout out to Rachel, our wonderful former producer of the show. Make sure you're following her on social media. We miss her. We miss working with her. Also, my song for this week for the NFC East Mixtape is Dad by U2.
Dad?
Bad. B-A-D.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to offer any assessment or reason or?
No. The Cowboys are bad. Other things are bad. Bad. U2. Good song. Not a bad song. Good song.
Okay. I didn't know if we were going to do the songs thing. I have a song.
What do you mean? Come on.
Well, I didn't know we were calling this a mixtape or whatever. I know I have a song ready, and I'll literally add them to the playlist right now.
Yeah.
But so my song, you are the one who did this more often I don't want to say did, like it's past tense, because we're hoping that we can continue to do this. So you're the one who does this more often than I do. Like the song title or a line in the song represents how you feel about the Eagles specifically, not like about life, but about the Eagles. So I'm going with the song title here. I Don't Care by Fall Out Boy.
Nice.
So that's my song.
Cool.
Do we want to guess a song for Rachel?
No. I could never.
Yeah, I couldn't either. But
her taste is too sophisticated for me to be. I'm going to suggest something and it wouldn't be up to par.
Hang on, I'm adding your song right now before I forget. Do you want the live version or the regular version?
No, regular studio version. Yeah. I've been listening through their discography a little bit. I get on kicks like that. I just did Coldplay recently because I hadn't listened to them in a long time, and I saw they like
it
a
was
newer
all
album
yellow.
That's right. So I did that with Smashing Pumpkins a little bit ago.
What do you think were the last songs we added before these two?
I forget. I really do not remember.
I'm assuming this was yours. So I think this looks like Rachel's, or I'm assuming this was Rachel's. Most Wanted by Beyonce and Miley Cyrus. I think that was Rachel's.
That was not me.
And it looks like mine was Love Fool by the Cardigans.
Okay.
And yours, I'll tell you the band. We Are Scientists.
Oh. What I know the song goes. What?
It's embarrassing.
Say That You'll Stay.
It's called After Hours.
After Hours, yeah. It's
Wow.
not yes. I couldn't think of it because that part isn't in the chorus. It's something they say else otherwise in the song.
Do we want to push this out today that we're recording it? The day we're recording it?
Sure,
like immediately?
Okay. I mean, I will try. No
I'm going to
promises.
then. It's going to be out very soon. So
yeah, why not?
so if you're watching this on Wednesday, just know that we're wearing the same clothes. So wow. All right.
You mean like we're both wearing each other's clothes?
No. As we leave, Brandon is going to tell us his 5 favorite things that he's watched since the last episode of the mixtape. They can be football games, they can be episodes, they can be movies, they could be short stories, things that you watched in the break.
I finally got around to watching Oppenheimer because, we get those screeners from being in the union, and I just hadn't gotten to it. I meant to for a long time, but like I'm usually late on things. So I'll put that on there. I don't think it was like my favorite movie of all time. Like it's not like that kind of thing for me. It was interesting, worth watching. I'm gonna go Agatha All Along. I actually really liked that.
Stat said he was watching that one.
That one. It was like I think people who aren't even into Marvel might like that. Like I think that was really well done. I was impressed. I was not going into that with any expectations or negative expectations, and it was like I thought it was really good, and it fit for me. I like Halloween kind of stuff and the time of year, so that was probably an added bonus. I mean, 5 is a lot. I don't even know if I've watched 5 things since then.
Let's get to 5 together. I mentioned the Vince McMahon documentary, and as someone who had no knowledge whatsoever of wrestling, it was really interesting. It was like, oh, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've heard of him. Like, that was kind of the experience I was having throughout the entire thing.
House of the Dragon, definitely season 2. Really like that a lot. Excited for season 3. Definitely. Just love the sun. It's such a great feeling, especially off season. Like, you don't have football. So it's like, and Sundays is kind of like whatever of a day, but then you have like the Game of Thrones, House of Dragon night feel. It's like, oh, it feels like special. Like Sunday night, it's going to be like a special time. So definitely that. And do you want to close this out?
I'm going to close this out with something I haven't seen, but something that I'm going to see very shortly. And it's one of the screeners that you talked about. For anyone who is unaware, as we are members of the writers, I forget the official name.
The WGAE.
Union. So I've actually never understood if we are allowed to vote or what we vote for or how to vote, but we're sent these things so that we can vote. They're screeners of movies, and you have like a special code and everything. It's like a big old
deal. Very cool. It's a very like unexpected perk.
And they used to send, I'm sure you remember this, like some shows or movies would send like little packages.
Yeah, I have like something like little things like that around my place here still.
Yeah, I remember my wife watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
I was just thinking of that one. Yeah, they give like a little pink case.
It was like a little makeup bag, purse type thing. Whatever.
I have a bunch of sticky notes like right over here off camera from that.
I got, but now they're all emails. And it's just like, here's your code, and go to the website or download the app or whatever.
Yeah.
So I watched Wonka. That was not good. I did not like that.
Yeah. I love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Willy Wonka's great, but
the original one, not the Johnny Depp.
This Timothy Chalamet is not great. But so I have 3 screeners in my email right now. One is for Dune 2, which I haven't seen. And you said you gave a shout out to Rachel, a semi-frequent member of the mixtape. Shout out to Steven Serta. We've been thinking about Steven a lot too. And always support him and his podcast network and his crew. Steven was the one who I actually, right before everything, I started reading Dune off of Steven's recommendation. And
I've been wanting to see him.
Yeah, so I haven't finished the book, but I have seen the first movie of the redone movies. So you should have it too. We have the screener for Dune 2. Oh. And which check your email. And but I got an email yesterday with a screener. I know it comes out like next week, but there's something cool to watching it on the screener than like Disney Plus. I mean, it makes you feel cool,
sure.
And so I got the screener for Deadpool and Wolverine. So I'm excited.
I did see that. It's not it wouldn't be in my. Yeah. I liked it, but it's not in my top 5.
Wow. Do we want to close with like a message to the mixologists? They've been waiting to hear from us for a long time.
And it's from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder, and it goes, "We are the makers of music, and we are the dreamers of dreams."
My words to the mixologists are, number one, I always fought for this name. Just so you know, Brandon was the one who opposed it. There was another one that we did not like, if I recall.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Okay, Burr! I'm in the icebox. If you know what that means, then we really love you. BLG, tell everybody we love them.
Love you.